Okay. How's everybody doing out there right now? Kind of crazy, right? So I'm on in a coaching program, and I've got two coaching team members. One, they're all over the country, and they have been a little bit like me and like you guys, that the buying side's been a little bit slow, and all of a sudden it's picked up. I think Vegas is a little slow, but I think we're starting to see the front edge of maybe some potential happiness. Today, we should see rates improve. Again, we don't want to be focusing on that, but it looks like maybe we'll be turning a corner. We got Sayonara. Hey, how are Sayo? She goes by Sayo. I got a transaction going with her. Better make sure I close that on time so she doesn't get on top of me.
Hello.
How are you? Thanks for coming. Okay, so everybody can see the crushing the second half of 2022 slide, right?
Yeah.
All right, so anybody, what happens every now and again, the screen share will stop, right? So just let me know if you could, that would be great, right? And so let's get rolling here. So I got you here under deceptive pretenses about crushing the second half of 2022, but it's really about crushing the second half and the rest of your life, right? Because it's a little bit like a diet, right? If you're, whether it's a boot camp or anything like that, there's things that we need to change, right? If we're going to crush it in the second half of 2022, let's make sure that we take this into the future, right? And having been in this business for a while and seeing the ups and downs, all we can do is be in activity, all right? And so what I would say too is if anybody has any questions, a little bit tricky for me to get to chats. I'll do my best. If I don't, I need to figure out if I can give Amber the ability to answer in the future, but type for sure. But if you have any questions, just unmute, all right? So here's the game plan for today, because we have 45 minutes. The last couple have gone long, and I want to hit this one, keep it on time, and then people can ask me questions. So that's the story. So first of all, we're going to talk about mindset. And so everybody hears this all the time, whether you go to a seminar, presentation, anything, it's almost to the point where it's like a rote conversation. You got to have mindset, right? But let's really be serious about this. We're going to talk about habits, right? I took out, there's habits and beliefs, right? You can kind of stick beliefs in there, but you got to have the right habits. You got to have activity, right? And it's got to be the right type of activity. You got to have tracking and accountability, and you have to have a goal or a target, right? You have to have some idea what you're trying to hit. Okay, let me go back here. All right. So, so that is our game plan for today. Okay, and I want you guys again to take a moment, write down any thoughts you have, and as we're going through this, figure out one or two things where like, yeah, I really need help on that. I really need to fix that, right? Be brutally honest with yourself, because, you know, that's one of the things that I've come to terms with myself is when you peel back the Band-Aid, when you peel back the layers of the onion, it's not as bad as you might think it is. So let's talk about mindset. So this is a list of mindset that I got from my mortgage coach last year. So I'm in a coaching program. I just had a coaching call. And my coach last semester, she's in the Washington State area. She's lovely. Her name is Julie Johnson, and she made $7.5 million in 2021. So anything Julie says, I listen to, right? And so even though she makes this amazing amount of money and saves it, she still works on all this stuff. And she said this, she has a daily decision when issues come up. You change your mindset, right? And she talked to us about this all the time, which is everybody wants to do stuff. What are you willing to do, right? And this is another thing you're gonna hear about all the time. I know some of the young guys might have an issue with this. Practice gratitude, right? There's 1,000 studies on this. And, you know, as you go through this, everyone goes, I've heard this all before, but are you actually really taking the time to say, yep, I have issues here, right? Do you have any energy vampires, right? Do you have, do affirmations? There is a wealth of information that affirmation in the studies that show affirmations help. I'm not talking about saying I like myself or people like me. I'm talking about affirmations that can make you feel better about what's going on. My favorite affirmation that I use all the time is I am confident in my ability to figure things out, right? I have heard that before. And so when I get confronted with stuff, that's what I say is, you know, is I am confident I will figure it out. Set a time limit on bad feelings, change your environment, right? And so whatever your statement is, I did my best and my best is good enough. That's what the core uses. Maybe it's, I want to be an apex predator. Whatever it is, you need to start there and you need to put time and activity, not time and activity. You need to put effort into this. Mindset doesn't just happen, right? And so one of the things that's happened to me and that I've seen is that there's a great TED talk about 100% is easier than 99%. Okay. And the whole idea here is if it's 100%, you don't have a choice, right? 99%, there's still a little piece of you that's wondering what's going on. You need to be 100%. You need to focus on the problem. I mean, on the promise, not the problem. And here are the two things that I say all the time. Obstacles don't block the path. They are the path, right? Mm-hmm. So this stuff, I think everybody's seen this. And there's also one thing that I think I missed on the slide before, which I actually really wanted to hit you guys with. This is super important. So I'll go back through this quickly. One of the important points here, target. Oh, no, it's on the next slide. Sorry, guys. So I show you all this stuff, but let me tell you what it looks like. This is my gratitude journal. I actually do it every day, right? So I got to block out that one thing that was a little X-rated, right? It was good, but it was X-rated. So you look at this and it looks stupid. I am grateful for eggs. I am grateful for my gas stove, right? I'm often put down, I'm grateful for AC. A couple of 3, 4, or 5 weeks ago, I punctured a water pipe in my garage because I'm not the brightest bulb when it comes to stuff like this. And for a few days, we didn't have running water, right? We went to the neighbors and all that stuff. I really can honestly say at this point, I am grateful for indoor plumbing. Super grateful, right? So while we're sitting there saying, oh, I got these problems and these issues, and by the way, I know people on this call that have some really stuff that confronts them. You guys know who you are, stuff that is not fun to be dealing with, but what can you focus on, right? This morning, all my girls were sleeping. I got up at 4:40, and instead of being like, look at that, they're all asleep and I'm awake, I said, I am really grateful that they're all peaceful, right? So I go through this and I think about it. I don't just go, I'm grateful for my daughters. I'm grateful for this, right? This is what and this morning as I was walking around the house, I love my house, right? And so I do it every single day. And what they talk about is when you're focusing on what you're grateful for, you can't be in a bad spot, right? And I wish I could say you can do this one day and be done, right? But do it every single day, right? And every time I talk to someone that is uber successful, they have some version of this. So this is all about mindset. There's a great book called Mindset. The lady's name is Carol Dweck, right? But whatever you have, you need to identify, are you somebody that has a mindset that is limiting, right? Do you feel uncomfortable going after your sphere of influence? Do you feel uncomfortable going after your friends? Do you feel unworthy? Do you feel negative? Whatever it is, figure out what it is. I have suffered most of my life from a limited mindset. I know you guys can't believe that, but that's the case. That's why I read the book Mindset. It talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I always used to think your ability is set, it's based off of X, and that's not true. We can invest our time, we can get better, right? There are lots of talented people that aren't successful. So work on your mindset, habits, work habits, morning routine, evening routine, right? So as you go through this, some of you look at that. If your first meeting's at 11 a.m. in the morning, unless you have a night gig or job in the evening, because I know some guys do, get up earlier. What habits are you committed to doing, right? What are the uncomfortable things you want to do? Are you committed to calling X number of people, right? What will you do? So for me, in the morning, do you have a morning routine, right? So I came in this morning, Amber's here, and I crushed my morning routine this morning. I came in, Amber, was I not like bubblier than normal? Right? Because I woke up. I'll show you my morning routine in a minute, right? Evening routine, same thing. I have in the evening when I get home, I have a specific routine, when to turn off the phone, right? Prep for the next day. How many people here wake up in the morning and they ever have a problem finding their keys? Anybody ever not be able to find their keys, their wallet, anything like that, right? So Raul doesn't have that problem. I used to have that problem, and that's a habit. Not finding your keys is a habit, which actually starts you off on the wrong foot. So I hung up a little thing on near my door. So every day I hang up my keys. It sounds stupid, but I never have to have a problem finding my keys. My wallet goes in the same place. It sets me up. So instead of being frantic, I get out and feeling really, really good. Health routines, physical, mental, and spiritual, right? Um, who here, needs to work out more or eat better, right? Does anybody here meditate, right? Or pray or do sewing? There's a lot of different ideas of, of taking care of your mental health, but it's a hugely important issue, right? I meditate in the morning. I take deep breaths all the time, right? When I start to feel confronted with what's going on. So you need to not just look at this as kind of, oh yeah, of course I got to do this. What are you going to do to change it around, right? What are you going to do for your physical activity? Because you have to be in good, you don't have to have a perfect physique. You don't have to be like Christians, like 38 Christians there. He's like, just turned 30, right, Christian? And Christian could probably work for 48 straight hours without blinking, right? So he doesn't need to work at as hard as we do. But I bet Christian, how often you go to the gym, Christian? You there? It comes back on. Anyway, I know he goes frequently, right? And I think what my advice to everyone here would be focus on improvement, don't be perfect. So here are some of my habits. So this was my day yesterday, morning routine. So the morning routine is scheduled 4:45 to 7. Review day. I actually have a 9 o'clock meeting with Amber that I have to put back in the calendar. But we come in here, I clean up my workspace, and I do it a little bit better every day. Amber gives me my phone calls, right? I had a meeting here. I did not have a referral partner. I made phone calls on my way to the meeting for this meeting. I made sure I had phone calls, right? I was very intentional about the day. So these are habits that do not come naturally to me. It is actually a relatively recent thing that I'm even close to getting following my calendar. But the issue here is if you start with 50% on your calendar and then 55 and then 60, it makes a big difference. The top guys that I know follow their calendars, right? The guys in my coaching program that make the 8-figure incomes, that's 10 million or up, follow their calendar 95% of the time. If it says on their calendar, jump up and down like a madman, they will do it. It's not a joke, right? So the more intentional you get, the better. Now, I know a lot of you look at this and say, oh, that looks so restrictive. The more structured you are, the more freedom you have. It's just a fact of life, right? And another reason why people don't like to have calendars is if you look at this and there's something you don't want to do and it's on the calendar, you have to work a little bit harder not to do it, right? So and Amber can tell you, there's times like I do not want to make these phone calls, but I'm going to make those phone calls, right? I have a time when I'm supposed to go home. I print my schedule, I write 5 wins and I plan the next day. And then I have my routines. Here is my morning routine. Wake up, 1 minute of vigorous movement and smile. Why smile? Because I am not a cheerful person. I'm working on smiling. Put on work clothes and smile. Workout clothes, lemon water, meditate 15 minutes, work out 15 minutes and smile. I get it, Juan, smile. Get ready. I take a cold shower because I'm sweaty, right? Gratitude journal. The journal writing, I'm not doing very well on. I got this really amazing journal. I want to start talking about other stuff other than gratitude, not using it at all. Area of improvement, right? Do some personal development, breakfast, kid, leave the house by 7:15. Do I hit this very frequently? Not as much as I like, but this morning, man, I did all this plus. I did double workout, right? So I came in feeling like a champ, right? Home routine, unplug at 7:30 and smile. Prep for the next day, get the coffee ready, right? Make this a routine. Everybody I know that does really well, it sounds boring, but it creates this level of consistency. Do you know Steve Jobs? Do you know why Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every single day? Anybody have any idea? Does everybody know who Steve Jobs is? Started Apple? Anybody have an idea? First person that gives me a good answer gets a $5 Starbucks card. Go.
It was easy.
Yeah. Was that Deborah? Who said that? It was big. Yeah.
It was Annette.
Correct. It was so, and I think that's net big. Okay, great. It was easy, and he didn't need to use any brain power. I'll give it to you, right? And there's lots of people that talk about it all the time. I'm not saying you have to wear, because he would wear a black mock turtleneck with blue jeans and sneakers, right? When you're worth a few $1 billion, you can do it. But that's the exact answer is he did not need to think about it. He had a locked in routine. And I know a lot of guys, I know one guy's like, look, I have a bunch of different coats. They're all in a certain color scheme, a bunch of different pants. I really can't go wrong. Plus, the guy's not a very good dresser, right? He just isn't good with color combination. So that is correct. So the reason why I'm showing you this stuff is that everybody tells us to have habits. It is hard. It's a big pain in the ass, but when you do it, it sets you up for success, right? And I have here 10 minutes. So I have one of those massage guns, right? And one of the things that I got to be better at is I come home and I'm been talking all day and I don't give attention to my wife. So we have scheduled on our time. Do we hit it all the time? No. We sit down and we talk, right? I'm so excited when that 10 minutes over to go watch TV. But for those 10 minutes, I am on it, right? And it helps because it's built in and we have a really good marriage because I'm like a lot of other guys. I come back and I'm like, okay, I spent all day talking to people and dealing with people. So when I'm telling you about these habits, this is game changing. Every time I have a call with one of the coaches that makes a lot more money than me, the first thing they go is, how's your calendar, right? Not how are your skills or what social media do you use or what your CRM is and all those things. The thing that always comes up is, what does your calendar look like, right? And I send in my calendar. I have a second coach, a life coach, that I send in every day. If I don't send it in, I get fined $50, right? And so it becomes a habit, and it's kind of amazing, I'll be honest with you. But all right, so let's go. Activity, quantity first, quality, right? So I have conversations like this all the time. You talk to more people, you have more conversations, you win. This is a contact sport, right? Social networking aside, this is a contact sport, right? And so at the beginning, I used to be like, okay, every call's got to be great. Now I'll call anybody that moves, right? But as you start to get more quantity of activity, then you get to dial in on the quality of the activity and have impactful conversations. So I check off all the prospecting calls I have. I met my quota right? But I can't just, if someone just calls me, I actually have to have some impactful part of that phone call. And that's another class that I gave. But as agents, when you're chatting with people, ask questions, right? So, hey, how's your job? I switched jobs. Great. Why did you switch jobs, right? Tell me, why are you passionate about your new job, right? Or you're chatting with somebody and they say, well, your wedding anniversary coming up. Tell me how you met your significant other. Actually ask questions. It's amazing what happens when you actually ask the next question, because whether you want to believe it or not, you'll get interested because people will start to get fired up. So when you're having those conversations, and if your time is constrained, if someone here that can't work full time, make sure you have impactful conversations. Credibility, right? Agents, all of it, you need to make sure that in that activity you're credible. That's another area that I focused in on, how to talk about what's going on in the market and rates and all that stuff, and work on being as professional as possible. For some of us, there's no issue, right? I mean, Mina, how long have you been doing this? She's from Texas. I think she's been doing this business 20 years, right?
Yes, at least.
You didn't have to worry about credibility or professional. It's easier for her and for me because we got gray hair. So well, I have gray hair, she doesn't. And so that just kind of comes along with it. But there's plenty of people that have the gray hair and a little bit of wrinkles that aren't credible, right? Credibility comes from looking people in the face. So in that activity, you're not being credible. If you're not looking people in the face, make sure you do that. Make sure that when you chat with people, get feedback, right? And this is one of the things, there's a great book called Grit. Anybody here heard about it? You read it. I read it because I used to think I didn't have grit. Everyone tells me I have a lot of grit. I now believe it, right? But I always used to think my problem was not that I would succeed and not that I could, that I didn't have the mental and the toughness to do it. Now I know I do, right? And what they found out in doing all these studies is there's people that have talent and there's skill. And there's a big difference between talent and skill. Talent you're born with, right? Skill is earned, and there's a double dip when you do skill, because as you're owning your skill, you're actually doing that activity more. So if you're really good at making phone calls, but you only make 5 calls, you don't get better. If you build your skills at making phone calls and you make 10 calls, you're making more calls and you're building your skill. I'll have to find that passage, but I think a lot of people here might get this idea of, oh, look at that agent, look at whoever the top agent is. They had that innate ability. They're great talkers. They're great this. They're great that. No, I know a lot of agents that have done really, really well, and they struggle just like the rest of us do, right? It's not that easy for them either. Tracking, I'm gonna stop there for a second, right? Because I've gone through a lot, right? Kind of quickly. And part of this issue, what I wanted to do on this piece is a lot of this stuff people know about, but I want to show you my experience with it. Hopefully you can feel that it's authentic, but I want to stop for a second, see if anybody had anything to say, anything that they wanted to add, or they have a contrary view that you don't believe what I just said. Go for it. Annette's going to say something good, I can tell. Go. Nope. Is it making
hear me?
sense? What's that?
What type of calendar do you use?
What's
Is
that,
it-
a calendar?
Yeah,
All right,
I mean,
this,
just a
this,
rec,
this is great. And I had an agent, she was in my office the other day. I use Outlook, but you must print out your calendar. You must print it out because we are desensitized to this thing,
yeah,
right? And you can't look at it, right? So when I look at it and I see it says prospecting calls, right? If it's there, you can ignore it, right? You take notes, you move it, you check things off. You have to have paper. But I do use Microsoft Outlook, right? I know some people use Gmail. I like Microsoft, where we use the Office suites, right? But whatever you use, whether it's Outlook, I mean, I think the two big ones are, you can print it out in Google as well, right?
mhm,
But it's got to be printed every day. Go around, I've got my calendar on the top and my greatness tracker on the back, right? Which is my activity. So when it comes to tracking and ability, the number one thing, face-to-face meetings. This isn't, like I said, this is a contact sport, right? You guys sell real estate. It's a big ticket item, right? Break breads. You learn a lot about people when you go and you have a meal. Mina and I had a great conversation the other day. She's new from Texas. She's an experienced agent, but she's trying to figure out how to really get in some inroads. And I told her there's probably a lot of people here from Texas. She should be the Texas Realtor, right?
mhm.
But we had a great conversation, little wine, little beer. I think she might have hit on me. It's okay. Don't worry. Maybe she didn't hit on me. Yeah, maybe.
Man,
No, I don't think so. She didn't hit on me. Uh, that's just my egomania going on. It's fine. Impactful conversation. We talk about handwritten communication. I send 20 thank you cards, or other different items. I already hit my 20 for the week, right? Why do we send cards? Because nobody sends cards anymore. I had my assistant before. I got Amber, and Amber's my admin, my loan. She can process. She can do income calculation. She manages my calendar. The one before her couldn't read script, could not read cursive, right? Because I know, unbelievable, right? I don't know if does everybody know that George Bush, the original George Bush, was famous for handwritten notes? Does anybody know that? He was famous for writing these really wonderful, and there are people that talk about it. He wrote a really great letter to Bill Clinton, who came in after the first one, right? And he is renowned for how he built relationships with people by handwritten communication, right? And I got one the other day from an agent because I did something impactful for her, and it really made me feel good. So these are the types of things: video, emails, snail mail, right? Some of the agents in my program said this is a standard. It's called the letter of the heart, right? Some people are cutting back on their budget a little bit and they're sending it as an email, but told me all about, his journey with philanthropy, and how his daughter had suffered from cancer, but she got through it, and how he was able to fund someone's Make-A-Wish. It's really great stuff. So he sends this out to all his clients to create rapport, right?
Juan, do you have letter templates?
Yeah, so this one here actually goes through a company called Good Neighbors. If you send me an email, Murat, I can send it to you. I'm actually doing this temporarily as I'm doing this temporarily as on a video, but this is really a beautiful thing to send out, right? And yes, I can send a template, right?
Yes, please. I'll go ahead and send you email.
Well, events, does anybody here know their expenses and their income, right? So the part of this is Tracking and measuring. I had eight agents in the office last week. Nobody knew how many leads they got per month. Nobody knew the cost to acquire a lead. Nobody could track that stuff. And so here's my accountability. That's last week. 72 prospecting.
Oh, yeah, then that has to be the most recent one.
Oops, somebody's on there. I'm going to mute. I think we got it. So this is a lot of activity, 25 meetings, all this stuff. So this kind of is, to me, kind of blows my mind. Part of the reason I can do this is because of Amber, but the issue is it's not 1 week. That's the week before. That's the week before. That's the week before. And so part of me looks at this, or used to look at this and say, God, I have to do this every week, right? And if you look at it like you have to do it every week, then the weight of it might be a problem. But if you look at it and say, once I get this done every week, my job is done, I'm good to go. At this point, I have hit all my metrics. I can leave tomorrow if I wanted to and take the weekend off. I'm not gonna, but I can because I hit it. I hit all my metrics, right? So what I learned, and I would tell everybody here, is although that may look scary, this is your salvation, right? The good stuff is the grind. It's embracing it. And I kind of get off on checking off boxes and getting stuff done. And so accountability and tracking. So some people that I'm working with are going to have me coach them on this. They're going to turn it into the accountability. But guess what? The real estate agents in my coaching program have the exact same accountability, right? It's a lot of activity, but if it's what's required, right? So when I chat with people about this, let's go back here. So anybody look at that and get freaked out? I look at that and get freaked out. Actually, I'm not making this up. I told Amber today that, like, we're trying all these things, and for like 5 minutes, I felt totally overwhelmed, right? Totally. But I let it pass, right? I think this is on the wrong area, but I'm really working hard to lose weight, right? So when it comes to activities and things like that, I have my pantry has an excessive gravitational pull in my pantry. There's a small black hole that sucks me in. Anything that goes by it gets sucked in, right? And so I have a really hard time with it. And so in part of my habit and my physical habit to eat less weight, and we're going on a cruise, I have this sign on it. So hot hubby, I want to look good for Disney in the bathing suit, right? Mindfulness, right? To eat mindfully, right? Self-love. Will Smith said this. He talks about self-discipline. So everyone looks at self-discipline as punishment. Self-love, discipline is self-love. Doesn't feel that way. I really want to eat that cookie, Nicole. Too bad, Juan. Self-love, whatever. Okay. So Disney, right? That's my reminder. And then my youngest said, do not disobey. She's 7. Clearly doesn't spell disobey very well, right? Disobey. I think that's what she said. So the reason why I'm showing you this stuff is you have to find hacks. You got to do whatever it takes, right? We are weak not all of us can survive fully on our ability, on our discipline, right? So cheat, create systems, do whatever it takes, and you'll have a much better chance at being successful, right? And so to me, and we talked about this, everybody, I don't care who the real estate company is, everyone focuses on, you should be doing your role playing, right? And you need to have your listing presentation nailed down, and you need to have your buyer consultation nailed down. But what people don't talk about is make sure when you're driving around in a car, you have all your calls prepped, right? Don't tell me I couldn't prospect because I was in the car for 4 hours, right? Then if you're in the car for 4 hours, you have nothing better to do. Stop listening to Howard Stern or Mercedes in the morning and make phone calls, right? And so it's the level of commitment that you want to do. So part of my kind of the big trip I'm on right now and talking to agents is what is your level of comfort with where your business is and where business is going, right? What are you willing to do? We have this wonderful career in the real estate and the loan world, right? Where where we can make a lot of money. The path is pretty well laid out. We know that because lots of people have done it, but we don't. And part of that reason is that we treat it like everything is voluntary. If you treated your business like it's mandatory, you would treat it differently. If you owned a McDonald's franchise, you would open it up at 6 a.m. You would know what your payroll is. You would know what your expenses are. You would know your metrics. You would follow it because you have $2 million sitting there, and if you screw up, you're going to lose it. Well, you should treat it the same way. You have a $10 million business that you're working on, right? And of course, we can all take a day off here or there, but you must hold yourself accountable. It's not super fun, but you know what's less fun is not holding yourself accountable because you end up miserable. That's that whole an ounce of the pound of regret preparation. You know that saying. Everybody knows that saying, right? So don't have that regret, right? Goals. Does everyone here have an idea of a target market? When I go to an agent, I say, what your target market is I'll talk to anybody. Of course, we'll talk to anybody, but say something. When I talk to people, I'll say, I am a VA specialist because that's a majority of my business and self-employment. Of course, I'll do rental properties. I just did a couple of manufactured homes and I do FHA and I do jumbos, but I will pick one, right? And so I know another agent that, when you listen to her voicemail, she'll say, all your land, residential, high-rise, commercial needs, right? Really? I mean, pick one, right? At least, or have three. If you're hanging out in a high-rise convention, say, I'm a net Bixler, I'm a high-rise specialist. When you're sitting at a 55-year-old plus community, you're saying, I'm a 55-year-old, an age-restricted community specialist. Figure out what you're going to say because you have a better chance of connecting with people than if you say you'll work with anybody, right? Strengths and weaknesses. Be really clear on your strengths and weaknesses, right? I have a lot of them. My last coach, I'm just telling you these things, and you can tell this. When Amber came in, and she's just a game changer for me, my coach said this to me. I had a little thing that says, no more than 6 sentences. Juan, she will leave you. So I had a little thing that says 6 sentences. And every now and again, I'll pull it out. I'll go, Amber, right? She's like, no, you're not that charming, Juan. She will leave you. So for the first month or 2 months that I had Amber, I'm like 6 sentences, right? So figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. I had a coaching call the other day and I was talking to this coach and he said, I told him what I was doing. And he said, well, in that case, you either have to have a product no one else has or you have to be charming. And I said, well, I'm charming. And the coach said to me, how many deals are you closing a month? And I told him, now he closes 70 to 80 a month. And he goes to me, Juan, deadpan, he goes, you are just not that charming. And he said, Juan, I wake up every morning and saying I'm a shitty LO and I'm lucky to be doing what I'm doing. Closing 70, 80 loans a month, right? 70 to 80 loans a month. 70 to 80 loans a month. I'm 80 loans a year is a great living. He has not charming. He's a very scary human being. He's Russian, right? But he's right. Be very clear on what your strengths and weaknesses are, right? What are your constraints? Monetary constraints, time constraints, right? And write down your goals. So does anyone know about that famous Harvard study? I'm about to tell you about it. Anybody know about this, about writing down goals? So in 1979, Harvard did this study of MBAs. Guys graduate, obviously they're leaving from Harvard, right? And they found out that 84% had no goals. 13 had goals, but they were not committed to paper. And 3 had clear written goals and they wanted to accomplish it. So I got my buddy here, Matt, the other day. He came in. He was really kind to let me chat with him. And I was kind of busting his chops a little bit. And I said, do you have a goal? You have a plan, right? And he's works his butt off and he may do it, but he doesn't have a plan yet. Probably will, right? We have a little bet, which I'm hoping I will lose because then his plan will come to fruition. But the whole idea here is having that plan written down makes a big deal. So these are the numbers. The 84, 10 years later, the 13% that had goals but didn't write them down made twice as much. I just use random numbers. I know Harvard guys 10 years out are making more than $250,000, but the relative numbers are fine. So they found out that the 13 that had goals made twice as much as the 84, right? Their income was double. But the 3% made 10 times as much as the other guys combined. Now, I back solved to get this number because that sounds impressive, but I want to show you what that number is. Those 3 made 91 million a year. Yep. Excel, baby, right? They made 10 times those other guys combined, even though they're only 3% of the group. So those guys averaged 91 million a year, right? All right. I actually got through this pretty quickly. So I'm going to stop there for a second. see what questions we have. And this was really more, again, I think for me, in talking about crushing this next part and the rest of your life, it starts with what are you willing to do, right? And when I talk to an agent, they're like, yeah, I want to make $250,000. Great. What's your average commission? How many transactions does it take? Then you can break that down into activity, how many calls, conversion rate, right? There are systems that you can build into place. And I think something that always scared me is if you look at this stuff really, really hard, you'll be confronted with all the stuff you don't do well, and you will be, but it's actually less horrible than you might think it is. It was less horrible than me when I looked at it. I'm like, oh, God, this is awful. But then I flipped it around and I said, if I'm managing to do pretty well with all of these holes in my game, how well could I do if I actually started to fill in all of those holes, right? So it's a double-edged sword. There's a silver lining, right? But be willing to take a hard look at what's going on. So I'm going to stop there for a second, see if there's any questions, right? I kind of went flying through that, or it felt like I did. So anybody, was this helpful to anybody? Because the challenge I have is I can't see people's faces very well, right? So was there anything helpful here? Steve, was there something helpful here? Steve the cop, don't shoot me.
Well, yeah, it just goes back to, having the plan, muscle memory. I think the hardest thing that in doing something like that is just the first step. And then once you get it, it's like going to the gym, getting there, I think is the biggest obstacle. And so it's just, putting the plan down and focusing and actually carrying it out.
Yep. And, being okay with it changing. So, there's a couple people here and I can kind of bust their chops because, there's a couple young guys on this call. They know who they are, which if I were an agent, I would be scared of these people. Yes, Mike, you should be scared of Michael Herman, right? Because when we chatted here, I'm like, you got to do this, this, and this. He's like, okay, I'll do it, right? I'm like, oh my God, that was right. Whereas the rest of us overthink stuff, right? It's going out. So the example that I give, and again, I'm picking on people, but in June, I presented this amazing tactic for realtors to create a sphere of influence, right? Step by step. I gave the presentation. I'm like, crap, I better do it myself. So on Thursday of this week, I had my VIP happy hour, right? And no, my VIP list was not locked in, and I had 18 or some people there. I had clients, right? I have an introduction to a financial planner from that. I have an introduction to a guy that owns an HVAC company. So in the meantime, while I think I gave the same assignment, a couple of you were on the phone call, I'm looking at you, you know who you are. I said, put together your list of 25 sphere of influence people. And that was the first step. And very few, I know Erica did a couple, nobody actually put that list together. I put the list together, had the event, and actually started to build my business. So the point being there is, what are you willing to do and to step up and just make it happen, right? Matt's got to be mad at me, Mr. Leeper. No. Erica, how are you doing? Erica runs a great business because she literally just goes to people and she's very social. She'll go to parties and she gets deals, right? You should do that VIP happy hour. So Erica, you have your list of 25 sphere of influence, right?
Yes, I do.
Raul actually did it right away. With Raul, we still got to talk about getting a few more of that, right? So I think I've called Erica twice a week the last couple of weeks, right? For the next part of the assignment, right? But she'll do great, but it's scary, right? Part of you's a little scared. Yes, be honest.
It is. It is.
It is.
It is, especially when I know that by doing these little things, my business will grow.
So there's the other piece, which is this fear of success. Because here's the other piece. I want to make sure everyone gets this. I had this great meeting the other day with Noah Herrera. He's a very successful agent. He's a really great guy. This is 3, 4, 5 months ago. We went out to lunch and we chatted. I said, Noah, and he does a lot of stuff. Like, I want to be Noah. And he's just the coolest cat ever. If you ever get a chance, like, he wants to help everybody. And I said to him, dude, you're always like this. Nothing seems to bother you, and, it's like, I always getting outside my comfort zone. He looked me straight in the face and he goes, I am always out of my comfort zone, Juan. He goes, I am actually trained myself to the point, if I'm not out of my comfort zone, I'm uncomfortable. And I was like, wow. And so the other piece of advice that I would give to Eric and anybody else is, I have spent most of my career waiting to feel good about it, right? waiting to arrive, right? Waiting that I won't be scared, right? It's the wrong thing to focus on, right? It just is, right? So you might be freaked out to know that, well, at least for most people, that'll never go away. It's just your ability to handle that discomfort, right? And if you screw up, you screw up. Let me tell you a story, Erica. 6 years ago, my coach said this before I was doing the coaching program. Seriously, said, you're going to have a lunch and learn for your agents. You're going to invite them and you're going to teach them something that will help them in their business. And then you can do it the next month and the next month and the next month and the next month. And I remember thinking to him, oh my God, I'm going to send it out. What if no one shows? He goes, well, you're going to do it again the next month. And I just remember thinking, if no one shows, what does that say about me? Right. And now I can do a lunch and learn I prep them because I have it all in my head. I did a lunch and learn for 4 straight years before the pandemic. And now it's like second nature. And I have lunch and learns. Hey, look, all these people came. I'm so appreciative of it. I've got lunch and learns that are a lot smaller. I'm thinking, oh, what if there's only 4 agents? They're going to think I'm a loser because there's only 4 agents. No, I get to spend more time with those 4 agents, right? There's almost no way to fail. And I think I've said this to a bunch of you guys. We got this great business because if we do a bunch of things and the results are only okay, we're going to be okay, right? Honestly, think about the size of our commission checks, right? If you go and you rent out, the T-Mobile to spend $1 million, right? You've got some risk, but most of the stuff that we do, it's not going to make or break us, right? So people have to get over it. So I'm going to give you another example, Eric, because I get this. It's the fear, and I'm totally a hypocrite because it's just recently that I really got beyond that fear. Let me tell you a little story, Erica, and maybe I told you this before. I did a webinar on December 23rd at 6 p.m., right before Christmas Eve. And it was the state of the market forecast, which we all know was way wrong, right? Because what happened? Rates were still whatever, right? And I did one for agents a couple days prior, and I did one for my sphere of influence, my clients, everybody, right? Had 20 people sign up, 6 o'clock on the 23rd. Everyone's gone. People were out of my office by 2 o'clock. It's dark, all this stuff. I'm starting to feel, right? 4 people showed up. 4. I closed the deal. I made $5,000 on a deal. That was a game changer for me. I got shitty results and I closed a deal. So now, man, I'll do whatever it takes, throw those things out, right? I went to a sales meeting in Pahrump because some couple great agents there would try anything, and you guys need to have that same mentality. I'd love to help you get past that, but that comes with accountability. So of course you're scared because Erica, you know what happens when you get a real estate deal? What happens with real estate deals? Problems, right? Does anybody have this? I still get this. You get a loan. Yay! Oh God, how am I going to close this loan? Right? We have that. It's the same thing. So there's that fear because your worst thing is what if you go from whatever amount of business you are to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 deals a month, right? Well, you get better systems and then you hire staff, right? So that fear is real, but you still got to do it, right? So I think I'm out of time. That's 45 minutes. So
Juan, can I say something real quick?
yeah, sure.
Sorry, hi, this is Linda Pelaez. I'm with Lawyers Title. I work with Juan. I work with Mina. Hey, Mina. And Steve, I saw you there, Steve Grunwald. Just really quickly, sorry I'm not on video. My camera, I have a new computer. My camera's giving me a hard time, but I just was noticing that, okay, so Juan has awesome ideas, great motivational stuff, organizational stuff. If any of you would like, I noticed that some of you, I was checking to see if any of you were connected to any Lawyers